Hello, welcome to another video review. I'm your host, Josh Rubin. In this episode, we will review a Science Direct Information and Software Technology journal titled Agile Software Development and UX Design, a case study of integration by mutual adjustment, written by John Pearson, Anders Brun, Marta Larsdottir, and Peter Nielsen. And the journal was published in 2022. For over 20 years, agility has been the North Star of software development, but the authors reveal a major problem. Agility is a double-edged sword that cuts differently for developers and designers. The journal uses a specific framework, Convoy's theory of agility, to show that while everyone says they want to be agile, they are actually chasing different goals. While the pursuit of agility has held prominence in software practice and research for over 2 decades, user experience designers struggle to integrate their work processes with agile software development. The journal concludes that integration based on mutual adjustment potentially makes agility for designers and software developers different and mutually complementary. The integration contrasts with both assimilation and separation. Assimilation potentially makes their agility mutually indistinguishable, and separation makes their agility different and mutually competing. Assimilation and separation both lead to conflicts for the UX design team. Agile and UX design often clash because they value different things. While developers want speed and working code, UX designers want deep research and perfection for the user. The authors argue that instead of forcing UX designers to act exactly like developers, the most successful teams use mutual adjustment. Mutual adjustment is sort of like a jazz band in that there's no rigid script. Instead, developers and designers nudge each other's work as they go. Unlike pure Agile, which often hates doing work before coding is started, this case showed that a small amount of upfront design is actually necessary to give developers a clear direction. And they were able to work in parallel. Designers and developers work at the same time, but on different things. While a developer works on feature A, the designer is testing feature B and sketching feature C. If it were to remain perfectly agile for both the designers and the developers, that would mean that they would stick strictly to the Agile manifesto and frameworks like Scrum without the mutual adjustment. Their workflows would be very different from their traditional styles and would likely run into immediate conflict. For starters, the two teams have very different goals. For a pure Agile developer, the definition of done is working code. If the code is bug-free, meets the technical requirements, and is deployed at the end of a 2-week sprint, then they have succeeded. However, for pure Agile UX designers, the definition of done is a validated solution. If they design a feature that works perfectly, but let's say the customer finds it confusing, the designer considers that a failure. In pure Agile, they are forced to stop perfecting it and ship a minimum viable product, even if they know that it's not the best experience yet, just to get feedback. They also require very different timelines to complete their work properly. Developers thrive in a 2-week cycle. It provides a clear start and end, whereas UX designers' research doesn't naturally fit into a 14-day window. If they followed pure Agile, they wouldn't be allowed to do sprint 0 or upfront research. They would have to research, design, and test a feature all within that same 14 days that the developer is building it, in order to stay on track with the same timeline. So the major difference is that pure Agile assumes that all work can be broken into tiny pieces, and developers can do this. But UX designers struggle with this because a single button affects the entire flow of the app. If they change the button today, they might have to redesign the whole page tomorrow. Mutual adjustment is the bridge that fixes pure Agile conflicts. At my organization, which is a college, pure Agile would force us to, say, build a new student portal piece by piece without a master plan. Mutual adjustment would allow us to have a sketch of the whole portal, user experience. The first thing that surprised me about this case study was the one sprint ahead myth. It's a common Agile UX tip to have designers work exactly one sprint ahead of developers. The study found that this is often too rigid. In reality, designers need to move at a completely different cadence. Sometimes they're 3 weeks ahead. Sometimes they are working side by side with a developer on a bug. So they need to be able to be flexible and work at their own pace to stay ahead or stay on track in their own way. The second thing that surprised me about the case study was that UX designers are acting as salespeople. The study revealed that UX designers in Agile teams spend a surprising amount of time selling their work. Because Agile moves so fast, designers have to constantly justify why a certain user test or design change is worth slowing down the sprint. And finally, a third thing that surprised me about the case study was that agility is different for everyone. We usually think of agility as one thing, speed. The authors found that for developers, agility means economy, where you don't waste time on features that don't change. And for UX designers, agility means quality, the ability to pivot the design if a user hates it. They are aiming for different targets, but using the same bow. At my organization, Colorado Mountain College, I'm not heavily involved in software development types of projects. I handle small IT projects, but I have been exposed to a few larger projects here and there, just not in a significant role. But could mutual adjustment work for us? In a college setting, requirements often shift based on the academic calendar or new state regulations. Mutual adjustment is actually very natural for a small team. If I and a colleague nudge each other's work, for example, we fix a login, but while they tweak the UI based on the student's complaint, then we are already doing a form of this. We might incorporate a form of mutual adjustment into our smaller projects because it works. It works for small projects because communication is direct and fast. We likely use a form of Scrum Light. We don't have 2-week sprints with a Scrum Master, but we probably have a mental backlog of student faculty needs and pivot when a high priority issue arises, like a system crashes or has an issue pop up. However, I imagine for the teams at my organization that do develop software, that mutual adjustment is likely very helpful. In conclusion, I would tend to agree with the authors here, with my limited knowledge and experience of this, that that integration is likely very mutually beneficial over assimilation or separation. Thank you for watching another video review. Until next time.